Everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Glad you guys can make it on another Tuesday with yours truly, the Tool Tutor. All right, and hope everybody's doing fine. Guys, title of the live, a guide to working in the trades as a POC. What does that mean? Person of color. All right. Yeah, this is a subject that I've touched on in the past, but it seems to be even more relevant today, right? Let's think about it. We are living in times where you have masked individuals, marching through the streets of your capital, like I said, with masks on, and they're representing a certain ideology that's prevalent, right? They just happen to be the face of it right now, and that ideology is to keep certain individuals on top and certain individuals on the bottom. I think you guys know what I'm talking about here. So you also have to understand that these are not just young men walking through the streets. Yeah, of course, it's a lot of them, but these are your employers, these are your doctors, your lawyers, whatever you think, your mailman or whatever, right? And that's why they have masks on, because they don't want to be identified. But knowing that they could be anybody that you come across in your daily life that may affect you in certain ways. Let's just say people who sign your paycheck or whatever, or it could be a real estate agent. I don't know. That's what we have going on today, right? Where we have these individuals marching through the streets of Washington, D.C. with masks on. And they're very serious, right? You may not think they are, but they are, about upholding the status quo as it is today. And you can ignore it all you want, but this is it's gonna affect you or your children, right? In ways that you probably couldn't even understand. You have an idea, but these ideas that they hold are very persistent. And if you are a person of color, right, you know it's going to affect you, right? So this channel is about the trades. It's about DIY. It's about tools and all of that. And so I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to give a guide to working in the trades if you are a person of color. And of course, I'm going to pull up the data so we can kind of skim through it here. So at least you can have some kind of guidance in these environments that could be very hostile. And if you're not prepared as a person of color, when you step out into the world, you step into these work environments, you may get a rude awakening, all right, as to where you stand in that hierarchy and in that environment. So I'm gonna just give you a quick guide here. Let's run through a little history of what's going on with it here. It says people of color have long faced systemic and social barriers to success, and working in the skilled trades is no exception. All right. Currently, people of color are underrepresented in almost all the trades. Okay. Only 6% of construction workers are Black, African American, and most skilled trade industries show similar numbers. Now, that is an abysmal stat, given the fact that African Americans had a lot to do with building the infrastructure of this nation here. And it shows you that you as an African American, you're going to be thrown away, all right, or discarded, or, marginalized, even after you did a lot of the work for free, mind you, okay? You didn't build this and get this stuff to get paid. You were enslaved and you didn't get paid anything, all right? And after all the barriers that have been so-called overcome, civil rights movement and all of that, you only represent 6% of construction workers. Now, this article here was written in 2024, at least released. I don't know the stats right now of what it is actually, but I would suffice to say that it's probably around the same percentage. Okay, And that's absolutely ridiculous. And it is a testament to how far this country has come. And I say that sarcastically, right? When it comes to representing you, as an African American in not just the trades, but most industries. All right. It says POC, people of color, remain underrepresented, particularly in leadership roles and high skill areas. Think about that. That makes so much sense. That's why I always, advocate, if you're going to get into something, you want to get into the more advanced areas of that skill or that trade or whatever it is, because that's where the the wealth is, right? The more you know, the more you earn. Otherwise, you're just going to be relegated to the lower tiers, and you're just going to be scrambling for years and years and get nowhere. So you have to aspire to the higher tiers of that trade or whatever skill that is, right? In order to make a dent in, I would say, generational wealth. And that's how you got to think. Okay, you got to think in terms of generational wealth, not just about you. Yes, you are a big part of it, but and that requires that you move to the higher levels of whatever you're doing. Okay, I know it's lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. If we push our kids more into the higher level skills, trades, whatever, even I would even say in college, if you're going to college, smartly, not just going there and not knowing what you're doing. Yeah, shoot for the moon on that stuff, okay? Because that's where you're going to stand out. And if you follow the principles of circulating the dollar within your own communities, then we'll definitely see a difference, right? That's a whole other conversation with that. But yeah, to reel it back in, you only represent 6% of the trades, guys. Okay, African Americans, and that's a sad shame. We understand why that is. We understand the hurdles that we have to overcome even just to get in. Matter of fact, I quote right here: "Your presence in these fields is a testament to resilience, skill, and the undeniable value people of color bring to the workforce. It's time to push for the changes needed to ensure fair representation and opportunities for advancement." Okay, so that's those guys marching in DC with the masks on right now, or whenever that was a couple days ago. They are. This is totally antithetical to their ideology. What I just read right there. They don't want that. Okay, they see you as a threat. That their very identity is being taken away just by the fact that you want to live and you want to advance and you want to do well in your craft. They don't want that. Okay, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And mind you, they're just the visible representation of how many people feel, right, in this country. Okay, it hasn't gone anywhere. It is what it is. So that's why I'm talking about how to navigate, okay, in a hostile environment. Yes, I said hostile environment because that's what it is. If you gotta step out of your house every day and go into a job, whether that's a trade, whether it's an office job, corporate, whatever, and you are confronted on a daily basis with microaggressions, with having to deal with people who are trying to undermine you at every turn, right? Then yes, I would consider that a hostile environment. And if you disagree with me, please tell me in the comments that's you disagree, and we can have a debate there. But yeah, this is the daily experience of people of color in the country. And if you think it's over exaggerated, that means you are a victim of cognitive dissonance, which I consider an illness, a mental illness. But that same mental illness is what has upheld this system as it is today. Okay, so I feel it's my obligation to give people a guide, right, on how to navigate in this environment. It's almost like being in a jungle and you have predators all around, right? You got to know what plants to eat, what things to stay away from, what animals to avoid. or how to live harmoniously amongst them if you can, as much as you can. And that's, unfortunately, that's kind of like how it is living in this country as a person of color, and all the dynamics that come along with that. Okay. So let's continue. All right. So yes, it is a testament to your resilience and your skill and your value. Okay. If you're in an environment as a person of color and you excel, that is the goal. Yes. Right. But to me, that is it's a milestone, I would say, but it's not the goal to be the only one and be proud of that. Right. I mean, look what happened to the young gentleman who just ended up dead because he was the only one in that environment. So I don't advocate that, right? Unfortunately, it's unavoidable sometimes because we, as people of color, we find ourselves in these environments a lot, especially if you're intelligent, and you know your stuff. You may get a foot in the door, and they can't deny your intelligence and skill. They can do that only so far. It's like to try to push you down, but they have to elevate you to some degree, right? And you find yourself once again isolated in and it's not a comfortable feeling, but it's, unfortunately, it is how it is, right? So that's why they had DEI programs to help alleviate some of these, I would say, ailments in society, in the workforce, right? Because the workforce is just a reflection of people's ideologies, really, right? They teach it at home and they bring it into the workforce, and they structure their whole system around that. And being a person of color, you got to go in there and deal with all this stuff on a daily basis. And yeah, so if you're doing that and you're doing it well, however you're doing it, I don't know, maybe you're good at code switching, or you're good at, we all have to navigate this, right? Because we got families to feed, or we want to make money and all this good stuff. But at what cost? You know what I'm saying? At what cost? This young man lost his life. At what cost? Maybe because his parents said, "Okay, we're going to move you to a different neighborhood where you have a better chance. Or get a better education." But at what cost, though? What's the other side to that? Right? Losing your identity, not understanding that you are in the midst of wolves, and thinking that you're one of them as well. Yeah, I don't know. That's something that really needs to be thought about, people of color, when it comes to that stuff. Okay. So let us continue. All right, the current state of the skilled trades for people of color says, though diversity in the skilled trades has increased in recent years, there is still a long way to go to ensure equal opportunity for workers of all races. Okay. The Bureau of Labor Statistics compiles detailed demographic data every year. So let's take a look at the numbers. It says, based on their findings, the construction industry, one of the largest trade sectors, Black workers constitute 6%, like I said, despite making up 12% of the total U.S. labor force. On the other hand, Hispanic and Latino workers represent approximately 30% of construction workers, which is higher than their 18% share of the national labor force. This indicates a concentration in the construction field, but it doesn't necessarily correlate with upward mobility within the industry. And that's the point I kind of touched on it already. Yeah. Just because, you may see a concentration in a particular industry of a certain demographic, it doesn't mean that's upward mobility is available to them. Okay. And I think that can apply to all demographics, regardless of race. But we understand how race and works in this country and everything. And we know that the denial of the availability of upward mobility in the industry is going to be, you're going to find that being dished out to people of color mostly, especially African Americans. Okay, so what does that mean? How do you deal with that? Okay, if you know that this is the case and you're going into an industry, you really have to be focused, right? That's why they say, or you got to be 3 times 10, 3 times 6, 10 times better than them. Okay, in order for you to even get a chance at being considered for a higher level position. Okay, that's not even a guarantee. So when I hear that stated, I'm like, hey, that's not a guarantee. You could be 10 times better, and I've seen it happen with my own eyes. How this, and you have to understand how disheartening that can be to an individual who's worked for years and years and years to hone their craft, and then somebody comes along, the owner's son or nephew comes along and they don't know anything, or and or just maybe the fact that they just gonna pass you up because you're an African American, right, or Hispanic or whatever. And how disheartening that can be to someone, and they still have to stay on the job and take it, right? They have to take it because they got a family to feed and all that stuff. Guys, listen up. At the end of the day, you have to build your own ecosystem outside of your job, okay, where you're able to make an income outside of your job. Okay, so you can call that whatever you want. Call that multiple sources of income. That's almost needed today, right? Especially if you're a person of color, especially in the climate that we're in today. Okay, that's what I push for. So yeah, these are some disappointing stats, but I think all of us know that it's really no surprise. What it should do is push us to build our own economies, our own ecosystem like we did in the past, and not only build them, but be able to protect them. Okay, you can't, that has to be baked into the plans, being able to protect what you built. Because if you build something and you don't protect it, anybody can come along and take it, and that has been done many times, especially with African Americans who have built hundreds of prospering towns all over this country, but they were not able to protect them. You know what I'm saying? And now look, so I mean, I can think of a few beach areas out here on the beach on the West Coast that were once heavily populated and ran by African Americans, these towns and cities. But you don't see that today because they weren't able to protect them. Okay. And yeah, so always think about protection when you think about building. Okay. All right. So where were we here? It says the numbers tell a similar story in more specialized trades, such as electrical, plumbing, HVAC work. Okay. It says, for instance, in the electrical trade, only about 10% of electricians are Black and less than 2% are women, pointing to an even broader issue of diversity beyond race. Moreover, the visibility of people of color in leadership positions within the trades is remarkably low. Even outside of the trades, people of color are less likely to be promoted than their white peers. This lack of representation at the top limits role models for aspiring tradespeople of color and impacts the practices that can facilitate more inclusive and equitable work environments. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So the lack of representation, like it says, it limits the ability of aspiring people that are, people of color that are aspiring to get to these positions, right? Because of these ideological barriers that have been put in place, right? Pretty easy to understand, right? All right. So this is not rocket science, people. It's just a cold hard facts about what we're dealing with here. So let's look at some of the challenges more specifically when you step into the trades or the environment, the workplace environment. Okay, discrimination by superiors. In 2020, they did a Gallup poll, right? Polls that they do, and it says it revealed that 1 in 4 Black employees had experienced race-based discrimination at work. with Hispanic employees reporting similar numbers. This discrimination can come from superiors who may not even know they're acting with bias, though sometimes the racism is explicit. You know, it has to be really deep if you don't even know you're acting with it, because that means it's so deep into your subconscious that you're doing it without even knowing you're doing it. It's like, you ever drove a car and then you're driving down the highway and you it's almost like you wake up and realize you've covered a whole bunch of miles, but you don't even remember doing it, right? Because that brain muscle memory or whatever just kicked in, and you started daydreaming, but you didn't get into an accident. You were driving like normal, but you don't even remember doing it. I think that's actually a level of skill that's, once it hits the subconscious like that, it's like second nature. That's actually one of the higher levels of skill. So imagine that the racism is so baked into somebody, right? That that second gear of racism kicks in where they don't even know they're doing it. It's like you know, and I think that's a very dangerous phenomena, you know, to deal with when you're dealing with people in the workplace or any environment. But we're talking about the workplace here. It says the reality is that people of color often receive less challenging assignments or are passed over for advancement opportunities. These disparities not only limit your ability to grow and showcase your capabilities, but also contribute to a broader culture of inequality within the trades. Okay, so yeah, so it's very far-reaching impacts on your advancement in the industries, whatever industry you're in. Because, you know, once again, this all connects to your community. If the men or women in your community are not getting passed up, right, getting passed over, or getting being relegated to some low-level job, in their industry, then guess what? That community as a whole is not going to rise, because he or she is not bringing home the bacon to invest in the community. Right? They're only bringing home maybe enough just to live on. And so that community is going to reflect, you know, what's happening in the workplace, right? It's going to reflect where, you know, how much the income that's coming into the communities. And this is engineered to be this way. Okay. And then you have casual discrimination from the peers, you know, people that you work with. It says the impact of casual racism and microaggressions from coworkers affects workplace morale as well as mental and emotional well-being. While many of your coworkers may not be outwardly racist, offhand comments and microaggressions may lead to feelings of exclusion. If you worked in any environment where you're a minority, this is no news to you, right? This is just another day at the park, man. It's normal, right? I mean, think of some of these big companies like Amazon, Tesla, and you've heard stories where, you know, this type of behavior is widespread, and it almost seems like it's encouraged or allowed without impunity. And that's, you know, that's the sick part of it all. Is like, you know, you find an uphill battle. It takes like a class action lawsuit to even make a dent, and that could take years for that to happen. You know, and within that span of time, you still got to pay bills. So what are you going to do? You're going to quit, or you're going to go deal with it? You know, it's kind of trying to be between a rock and a hard place. It's catch-22 there. Microaggressions have more than just an emotional impact. Studies have shown that even subtle racism can lead to increased cortisol levels and impact your mental health. I think that's the stress hormone, cortisol. Your stress levels go up. Even if you kind of brush things off and say, oh, well, you know, this is just how it is. I got to deal with it. Inside your body, that stuff is having an effect, right? It's having an effect on your health, and you know, increased cortisol levels. Imagine that on a daily basis, yearly basis. That's going to lead to some very severe health problems over time. Okay, and it's just going to spiral from there. So you have to understand that you can't just brush a lot of these things off. You have to understand how it's going to affect your health. Okay. And because, I personally believe that a lot of people that I know personally in my own family dealing with this kind of stuff, they're not here anymore because of this. Right. And once again, that's engineered. Okay. It's baked into the system. In addition to that, feeling isolated from your team and colleagues can prevent you from doing your best work on the job. No shit, Sherlock, whatever, excuse my language. Why would you be motivated if you're coming into an environment that's a hostile environment to want to do your best work? Because even if you do your best work, it's not going to be recognized, right? It may be totally ignored. I've been in environments where I know I went over and above as far as my work, and it was never recognized. Not that I need a bunch of recognition, but I mean, that could really lower someone's morale, right? Okay, people want to feel appreciated, don't they? Right. So if people are not feeling appreciated on purpose, then what's the lack of access to opportunities? Okay. The roots of these barriers lie in historical practices of exclusion and discrimination. It's no secret that in many workplaces, there is a landscape where opportunities are not always distributed based on merit. Apprenticeships, specialized training, and working in high-profile projects are all essential to advancing in a skilled trades career. However, you might find that these advanced training opportunities are less accessible, whether they're due to selection biases or cost or geographic limitations. All right. Similarly, when it comes to lucrative contracts, people of color often face additional challenges from overt, that's blatant discrimination, to subtle biases in hiring practices. Yeah, real stuff, people. This is the part of the trades I don't talk about a lot, but it's what kind of tools, right, that you're going to need to deal with this kind of stuff, right? This is a different kind of tools here that you're going to need to tackle this stuff. And sometimes those tools are your own 2 feet walking out of the place and just getting out of there and building your own. No matter how small it may seem in the beginning, it's better than giving your essence away to people that will never appreciate you, no matter how good you are. You're probably even smarter than them, and that's just going to make them hate you even more. So your next best bet is to bet on yourself. Okay, bet on yourself and get out there and do your own thing, whatever that is. And the other option is to just take it, learn how to adapt. And unfortunately, a lot of people do adapt to quote unquote successfully on the surface. It looks successful on the surface, but underneath they're totally a shell of themselves. They're destroyed. They don't know who they are anymore. And they actually become a liability to their own community, because now they're pushing this idea that, hey, listen, just take it, man. It's, just push through it. And I understand that, but not at the cost of your own identity. At the end of the day, you got to build your own thing. And if you haven't heard about somebody named Claude Anderson, go look him up. He has the blueprint for all this stuff. Okay, and he'll break it down how this whole system is built, and how you, in order to survive in the system, you need to do some things differently, okay, as a community. All right, how to break down these barriers, all right, combating discrimination and bias. It says, as a POC in the workforce, a person of color, you may never face explicit bias or discrimination, but it's essential to have a plan in case you do. Knowledge is power, and awareness of the legal protections at your disposal is crucial, okay? So the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, is in place to ensure that American workers are protected based on their race, gender, and sexuality, so that there is a path to justice. So number one, know your rights, okay? You got to research the laws and the regulations that protect you as a worker from discrimination. Okay, the EEOC, just like I mentioned, they have these guidelines. So you got to understand all these legal protections. Document everything, okay? So you got to keep detailed records of what they're doing to you on the job. Bring a tape recorder, use your phone, whatever you got to do to document it, because that's going to be your proof in a court of law. Okay, and that can, those can work wonders. Okay, and you don't have to let them, obviously you're not going to let them know, right? That they're being things are being documented. But even when you document it, you want to do it professionally, right? You want to include the dates, times, any witnesses, and what happened, right? The nature of what went down. Okay, I'll say so. That's going to be very important when you're pursuing any legal action, right? Any legal redress. That's going to be very important. Okay, so next one, use internal channels. It says many organizations have procedures for addressing workplace discrimination. This can include talking to your supervisor, all right, if they're not the source of the bias. But they got to be careful with that. Even if they're not the source of the bias, it doesn't mean that they're for you. So you got to be careful with that one. Human resources, if they have a DEI officer, which I doubt because they got rid of those. A lot of companies got rid of those people. So you got to be very careful about who you approach for backup, right? Or who can, because that's a very tight rope. That's a tight rope you got to walk on that one, because it's very hard to trust anybody in those environments, to be honest with you. Get external support. It says if the internal channels fail, file a complaint with the EEOC or a similar body. All right. Legal advocacy groups and trade unions can also provide guidance and support. Yeah, they can, but some places don't even have, they don't have those kind of connections. So, I think documentation is probably one of the best things to do. Advocate for policy changes. Work toward implementing or strengthening workplace policies on diversity, inclusion, and anti-discrimination. This can involve developing clear anti-racism policies, mandatory diversity training, and all that stuff. Okay, if you want to, if you're really pushing for that and you want to make a change in your industry, go for it. If you want to take it to that level. There was a young man, I don't remember his name. He did that with Amazon. Young African American man. He was well known for creating a lot of changes in that world, in the Amazon world. I don't know if you guys recall him, but yeah, he went all out. He took it the extra mile, And thing about that is what he did is he affected. It wasn't just about him. His actions actually helped like everybody, right? And that's what I'm talking about, right? He pushed for changes that helped everybody, and that's on probably like the highest level of service you can do if you're doing something like this. All right. All right, what about opportunities for education? Accessing opportunities and education. Apprenticeships, mentorship programs, high-profile projects are essential, right, for advancing your career. So there are also many specialized opportunities for people of color to use for advancement. If you want to attend a trade school or another specialized program, but worry about the cost, there are a number of scholarships and grants available to you as a person of color, okay? NAACP, UNICEF, UNCF, those are some resources. Let me see what else they have here. They have grants and scholarships that you can research. All right. And then they also have seek out apprenticeship programs that are committed to diversity and inclusion. Some unions and trade associations like the National Black Contractors Association, NBCA, have initiatives specifically designed to recruit and support you. All right. The U.S. Department of Labor also offers resources to connect individuals with apprenticeship opportunities, providing a pathway into the trades. All right. Don't forget, get out there and network. Okay. Don't just send emails and stuff like that. Go to some of these events that they put on every now and then. network, collect cards, exchange information. There is value in that. All right. If you're serious about it, you can really connect with some really important people that can change the trajectory of your career if you're serious about it. So, but you got to seek these things out. Okay. It's not just gonna knock on your door. Right. You got to seek them out. Join professional associations, attend industry conferences, and participate in networking events targeted at POC. All right. These can provide valuable educational resources, like I said, connections to potential employers or sponsors. You may even find a valuable mentor who can give you personalized advice on succeeding in your trade. All right. All right. So what's the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal is success. Succeeding as a person of color in the skilled trades, all right, that depends on more than just hard work and talent. Okay, it requires strategy, right? It requires the commitment to learning, lifelong learning. Okay, it requires not just being about you. It requires that you want to help others up, give other people a leg up as well. Okay, all of these things work together to advance yourself, because think about it. If you're helping other people, not just yourself, you're building a reputation in people's minds as, hey, that guy, that girl over there helped me get to this position, or gave me that opportunity, or opened the door for me. And you never know where these people are going to end up. And they see you maybe later on down the line, and they can help you get a leg up, or even vouch for you, as a reference or something like that. So it's all about helping others, not just yourself. Don't go into this with a selfish attitude. Think about who you can help along the way, and it'll be a more fulfilling journey. You also want to build a professional network. It says a study that was done reported that almost 85% of jobs are filled through networking. Okay, a wide professional network can be the key to moving up in your career. All right, and also establishing relationships. At the end of the day, people, it's all about relationships. Okay, so if you establish the right relationships, it's going to make it easier dealing with this, the discrimination and all this stuff that still exists. Okay, today, right? And that's just how it is. Don't try to go it alone. Establish those connections, right? All right. So let's see here. To build this network, you got to attend these events, like I said. All right. And, hey, social media is one of the biggest ways to network. All right. Or at least, put yourself out there. They got different sites that are dedicated to the trades. You can join these groups or whatever, on whatever site, and get in there and see what's going on and learn about it. All right. So today with the internet, it makes it a lot easier to stick your nose in the door and see what's happening, and maybe even contribute somehow. And you can end up getting connections just off of that, right? Just off of that. That's where we are right now. In the age of AI and smart homes, whatever your industry is, you're likely seeing some significant change. To stay competitive as a trades worker, you have to stay up to date on the trends and the skills that are in demand. Seeking advanced training opportunities such as specialized certifications or upskilling can significantly enhance your prospects. Okay. That whole AI thing is interesting too, because I just heard recently, I'll probably do another live on this, is that now they're actually bringing more people back into the workforce, because they're finding out that AI cannot do it all. So everybody, some of these companies that have released people thinking that, okay, AI is going to handle everything, they're finding out that, you still need that human touch. And so they're actually rehiring more people now, bringing them back in. So, but that's another topic I'll discuss on another live. Yeah. So it says success in the skilled trades hinges, once again, not just on the fact that you're good at what you do, but you have to have that emotional intelligence as well. You have to be able to strategize, be able to form good relationships, and keep them, right? And if you don't have the emotional intelligence to do that, then it's kind of hard to keep a relationship going. And so that's gonna stifle you. So that's you gotta keep that in mind, okay? All right. And once you get all these skills down packed, you can go out in your own community and be a guide in your community. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm working on. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. All right. So going your own way. All right. Entrepreneurship. That's what I push that all the time on this channel. Okay. Because at the end of the day, that's really going to be the only way to go. Right. So you may want to consider that. Okay. Learn how to run a business. All right. It says transitioning from skilled trades person to business owner requires another skill set. Okay. You have to understand business operations, managing finances, navigating legal requirements, crafting employee handbooks, developing a business plan, all that stuff. Financial management, budgeting, pricing your services, managing cash flow. All of this stuff is necessary to keep your business going. And so you're going to have to learn this stuff, okay, if you want to escape from that environment that I laid out in the beginning of this live, right? Or at least you won't have to be as exposed to that environment. You're still going to be exposed to it, regardless. You're living in this country, right? But you will be less exposed, and that's really the goal: is to be get the least amount of exposure to it as you can, and you can only do that if you're running your own show, okay? And that's just how it is. So entrepreneurship, to me, it's not even in the African American community. That's not even a what do they call it? It's not a luxury, you know. It's actually a necessity, right? That we push our kids, push our people, and teach them the basics of entrepreneurship to insulate us as much as we can from, you know, all the stuff that we got to deal with. And that goes for any person of color. If you look at the Asian community, somewhat the Hispanic community, because of their cohesiveness and the fact that they circulate the dollar within their own communities, they're somewhat insulated. So they can step into these hostile work environments and still come back to their own insulated communities, all right, and circulate the dollar there. And that's where we need to be. Well, like I said, we had it, but they destroyed it. See, that's the point I want to make. And I keep driving that point home. We had all of this as African American, all right? We had the towns, we had the cities, we had all that stuff. We had everything. But it was a concerted effort, right, by the U.S. government as well, to destroy everything we had. So they leveled it, right? They took away everything. The history is there. Okay, I don't have to get into detail. So when I hear people talk about, oh yeah, you know, you're lazy, you don't want to work on all that stuff, you are an idiot. You don't know anything about anything. Okay, until you go read a history book and understand what happened to put African Americans in the positions that they're in now, then we can talk about it, right? Then we can have a somewhat intelligent conversation. But until then, you know, there's no need for me to even elaborate on it. But it's right there on the open. Just Google it. You know, it's right there in front of you. It ain't hard to find. Okay, so financial management we talked about. Building a solid business plan is also fundamental. The plan should outline your goals, target market, competition, marketing strategies, financial projections for people of color in the trades looking to start their own business. There are a number of resources that are available. Okay, you got the SBA, Small Business Administration. You got local business development centers, trade associations as well. They offer guidance and support as well. Okay, so, but you know, a business is not anything without marketing. Marketing to me is really the lifeblood of your business. So you got to learn that. All right, you got to learn how to market it, and it's really not as hard today with the internet, right? You can get on there or hire a digital marketer if you need to market your stuff, right? Because that's what's gonna bring in the leads and the clients, customers, sales, whatever. So your digital footprint, whether that's website, you know, or whatever you got going on, that has to be in order. Because anybody looking you up today, or that you run into at an event, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna go on their phone and look you up. Okay, so you gotta have that presence online, some kind of online presence there to speak for you, right? Very important there. I think basically, guys, that's the main gist of what I'm saying. Let's see here. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Let's see. All right, guys, I'm going to leave a list of organizations that you can look up in the description to give you some more resources there. And yeah, you know, nobody said life is easy. There's certain things we got to deal with, but it shouldn't discourage you. It should actually push you to be greater. And if you're consistent and you don't give up, you see everything as fuel to the fire. Whatever it is you're dealing with, whatever comes at you, just take it as fuel to the fire. Don't be too emotional about it. Okay, where you get out of your character and then you mess up your prospects down the line. Just take a deep breath, and take the appropriate steps to deal with it. Okay, and you'll be on a better road there. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. Hope you got something out of it, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.